it varies basically. You know, people have had to come to Canada and train into other professions. But I can imagine if you're applying to come study in Canada, you already have a fixed mindset on the course you want to do already, basically, which falls in line with any of the disciplines that we have already existing in Canada. But you know, we do find that international students do come over sometimes and they had to change career choices. Maybe probably they felt that, oh, I think this would be rightfully for me, or I did a course in this area and I think I'll be, you know, better off doing this particular profession. So people can retrain in other areas, you know, that will give them that lifelong satisfaction of working. And of course, when you train into careers at the different institution, what does that lead to? It leads to work, basically. You know, we all know, and if we don't know that Canada also offers a post-study work permit, which is also equivalent to the length of your study. I mean, for instance, if you're doing a 2-year degree course, you get a 2-year post-study work, you know, and vice versa, basically. There are terms and conditions, though, and also depending on the course you choose, basically, you know, that is also there, you know. And in Canada, when it comes to work, we have so many fantastic companies that you can work with in Canada. You can see the logo of the companies that I have here. This is just a tip of the iceberg in terms of the companies that you can work for in Canada. There's so many of them, and there's so many opportunities. You know, it's a land bustling with opportunities. You know, when you train for the right profession, you know, or probably look for skills that are in demand and you train in that area. You know, companies are also looking after, you know, skilled graduates to come work for them. You know, the likes of Facebook, Microsoft, Google, Yahoo. So many of them that, you know, we have not actually even mentioned in this slide as well. So what are the other opportunities basically? When you after studying in Canada and you have an opportunity to get a post-study work permit, that also leads down another pathway. That's the pathway of you know, the opportunity to become a permanent resident in Canada, basically. You know, I mean, last month the government in Canada announced a residency pathway for about 40,000 international students who have, you know, previously studied in Canada, you know, and that shows that, you know, that there's an opportunity down the line if you're studying Canada or you're coming to study in Canada next year, because you know there's a high tendency that such programs will be repeated in the future, basically, which can lead to permanent residency after you've gotten your post-study work permit, and then you can now apply for permanent residency once the opportunity presents itself, basically. And of course, you know, one of the other unique things that you find in Canada is that, you know, the whole world is there. You know, talk about any nationality, you know, yeah, maybe you find them here. It's a bustling, rich of culture, different cultures, basically. You know, you can speak with the Canadian today, speak with the Tunisian tomorrow. You know, I mean, everybody is just here, basically. You know, makes the culture very rich, basically. You know, that's in itself alone, that multiculturalness in itself alone is an education that, you know, people can take away with them. You know, even if you don't you know, emigrate to Canada, but you know, if you study in Canada, that alone is something you can, you know, take away with that can change your horizon about the way you view the world, or change your perspective about certain things when you meet people from other parts of the world. It's education. It enlightens you, basically, you know, and you have friends all over the globe, you know. So let's continue. I must mention and digress a bit about some of the universities that we work with. You know, we work with Carleton University, and then our colleague Stuart Rennie will talk more about that later. One of the incoming universities for us is University of Alberta, basically. By this fall, we will be taking applications for University of Alberta, so you can watch that space. We already work with Thompson Rivers University. You know, University of Guelph in Ontario is also one of the universities we work closely with, and Mr. Stewart will also be throwing more light on that in his presentation. In one of the incoming universities for us is that one of the is University of Ottawa, basically, you know, which by this fall we will be taking applications for University of Ottawa as well. Um, Canada actually has a very, very vibrant and strong economy. You know, Canada is one of the G8 nations because, you know, it's one of the richest countries in the world. Canada provides more energy than even the US. You know, and meanwhile, Canada is just about 1/10 the population of the US, but it provides more energy just to show you the abundant resources and natural resources available, basically, in terms of human capital and potential and the natural raw resources in Canada, basically. And Canada is also a very beautiful place to come, depending on the province that you want to stay or where your school is situated at, basically. For instance, you can see the beautiful Vancouver that, is highlighted on the screen as well. Here you can see Calgary. Calgary actually is another, province, where it's more like the oil-rich capital of Canada, basically. It's also well developed and bustling with opportunities as well, depending on where you want to study or where you want to stay. People love to come to Canada because, they can study, they can also live. It's one of the most livable places on earth at the moment, basically. And this is Toronto. I mean, anytime people think of Canada, they always associate Canada with Toronto and Vancouver. But Canada is a lot more. There's a lot more than that as well. Just like associating Nigeria with Lagos alone, when you have there's so many other places that you can go to that are also fantastic as well. Can see parts of the tropical forest in the BC region. People holidaying and trying to see have some sightseeing. The Niagara waterfalls in Ontario, a beautiful scenery. Those are places that people will come to, and you want to go, you want to holiday while you're studying, you want to take some time off, basically. I mean, the richness in Canada is not only about just the schooling aspect, the other natural aspect too as well. It's some of the things that one needs to behold. That's the city of Toronto, a nightlife caption. And then back to reality again. The Canada's education system is more like synonymous with more like what we have in the UK, but there are a few basic differences, basically. For instance, the masters in Canada can take up to 1 to 3 years, depending on the course. PhD too can also take up to 4 years, depending on the course, on your thesis as well. There are also different vocational or apprenticeship level of education, as well as diploma courses that are linked to professional work. So those are the things that you need to consider alongside as well. Because I think in Nigeria we are also used to saying that we want to do either our BSc or masters. I think that's very popular. But here in Canada, people can even go do their diploma that is tailored towards a particular area of work skill, and they will be earning as much as somebody who probably has a BSc. Depend on the skill that you're acquiring from that program as well. So that's where the mind shifting comes in when it comes to Canada. These are some of the schools that we work with. One of them is Thompson Rivers University, and you can see some of the course offerings that they have here. We have many more of them, but we're just highlighting some of them. So when you speak to our counselors, they will be able to tell you some of the other courses and other schools that we also have to showcase. Another one is University of Canada West, York University School of Continuous Studies. For the purpose of this seminar, this visa seminar, we would also like to take application, but I must also let you know that application for the fall intake, which is September, is already late. But if you're looking at maybe probably joining the school in October and you have everything almost ready, University of Canada West has an MBA that you can join in October. I mean, I think we can still be able to make October, basically, but I think our visa consultant will also confirm that. But for January window and for next year window, it's very much open. This is the time now to start planning ahead as well. Other schools that we have that are also joining as partners that will be taking application for this fall, from this August or September when the application opens, we have Northeastern University, we have University of Fraser Valley, University of Regina, University of Ottawa, Brock, and Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. As you know, the tricky aspects of visa application or study application to Canada is actually the visa itself, basically. And that's one of the main reasons why we're organizing this forum here. And with us this afternoon, we have Matthew, who is a regulated Canadian immigration consultant that will be speaking to us about the intricacies of applying for study visa from Nigeria. Now, on the back of that, we all know that for us to apply for visa, we have to have the basics like acceptance letter from institution. the personal statement, which is very crucial, which has to make sense in line with your career background. English language requirements usually is required by the school, or sometimes the embassy requires that you have it in your package. Your immigration history is a very key area of focus, when you're applying for a study visa. If you've had refusals, that are very bad, or if you've had, a very bad refusal in one embassy or the other, it might affect your chances of coming to Canada to study. Your intention must also add up. And at some point, you might also need to do a medical test. Those are the other things that need to be put into consideration when you're applying for a Canadian study visa. Time is valuable, and time is all we need to work with when you want to apply to Canada, either for application or study visa. Because when you're applying for study, you have to factor in that, in Canada, the application window closes early. That's why if you're going for next year, you need to plan way ahead so you can start applying right now. So you can get in your offer letter, get your acceptance, and prepare for your visa application. We can take between maybe sometimes 1 to like 4 months, or 1 to 3 months, depending on how long it could take, basically. So we need to give that gap, and apply early. Admission sometimes could take up to 2 months or 3 months, depending on the institution and the course as well. So we need to plan early for it as well. So, like I said, for the student visa, that's a very tricky area, and that's why we actually have a consultant in the house that will be talking to us about visa, basically. But before the consultant comes on board, we'll have Stuart Rennie, who will come on board and come and tell us a little bit more about Guelph and Carleton University. And then we can take our questions right after then. If you have any questions right now, you can start typing them in the chat box while we go ahead, basically. So for the success rate with UKEAS, it's something that we always advise. And that's one of the reasons why we are actually having this forum, to prepare people well ahead so that you can have a better chance of success. Everybody wants to embark on a journey, but we all want to embark on that journey, having in mind that at the end of that journey, we'll have cause to smile so that we can achieve what we plan out to do. Contact details here, and some of these will be dropped in the chat box for you to pick up as well. So I would want to call on Mr. Stuart Rennie to come on board to share his slides about Carleton and Guelph. Stuart, are you ready?
I am ready and raring to go, Yomi. Thank you for that fantastic introduction, kind of setting the scene for Canada. And thank you very much to Yomi and Akena for arranging the session today. So without further ado, let me just share my screen with you. So just bear with me just now. Okay, and can everyone see the slides? Are they presenting okay?
Yes, Mr. Stuart. But you can put it in a full mode, yes.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, fantastic. So thank you, everybody, and welcome to the session today. My name is Stuart Rennie, and as Yomi mentioned, I am a global international higher education consultant, and I've been doing a lot of work in Canada over the past 5 years or so. I've also been working very closely with the team at UKEAS since they started operations in West Africa across Nigeria and Ghana. We've seen huge interest from Nigerian students who are interested in studying in Canada, and we've already done a lot of work working with the team at UKEAS, all the offices across Nigeria, from Port Harcourt to Abuja to Kano to Lagos to Ibadan and other cities that they have offices in. We do a lot of work with the leading schools across Nigeria, both international schools and also the leading WIAC schools as well. So today I'm going to build on what Yomi has already done in terms of introducing Canada, and then we're going to go on and focus on the two universities that I work with, Carleton University, based in the capital city of Ottawa, and the University of Guelph, also located in the state of Ontario. I'm then going to hand back to Yomi and Matthew, and I'll need to drop off the call as I have a further engagement this evening. But I'm going to cover everything in this session here. So, introduction to Canada. Canada is 10 provinces, 3 territories, and a population of 38 million. That population, though, would fit into the state of California in the US. So you have the second largest landmass in the world, with a population that is not actually that big. So there's plenty of space, plenty of parkland, plenty of open land in Canada. And that's what we find international students love about Canada. You have the vibrant cosmopolitan cities of Vancouver, Toronto, but there's also so much space. So whether you choose to study in Manitoba, Ontario, British Columbia, or even in the oil-rich state of Alberta, there is absolutely going to be something for you. The universities are globally renowned. They're public institutions. They're public universities. And with that, you have the sign of quality, and you know that you're studying at a university where your academic degree is going to be portable globally. So whether you choose to stay in Canada or whether you return back to Nigeria or you look for employment opportunities in other parts of the world, it's going to be a qualification that is going to be recognised globally. I think some really interesting stats for Canada in terms of why international students choose them. So if you speak to students from Nigeria who have already chosen to study in places like Canada, over 96% of international students will recommend Canada as a study destination, focusing on the high standard of academics, enjoyable campuses, and a real community spirit, both at the university and in the cities they choose to study in. But one of the key strengths of Canada, and this always comes out when you speak to parents or you speak to students, or you speak to Canadian alumni, you speak to Nigerian alumni who have studied in Canada, is the safety aspect. I think Canada is ranked second only to Switzerland as one of the safest countries in the world. And this is why many parents choose to send their children to study undergraduate, either doing senior school in Canada or on to university undergraduate, with many of those students staying on to study postgraduate. It's also one of the 6 most peaceful countries in the world. And as Yomi mentioned, it's one of the G8 countries. So it's got a really strong international profile as part of it. So there's your geography lesson, whatever state you choose to study in. We've spoken about it being a very safe and welcoming environment for international students. And I think Yomi highlighted it well, that it really is a cultural melting pot. So whether you're in Guelph or whether you're in Toronto or whether you're in downtown Ottawa or Vancouver Island, it's a mixing pot of international communities. And as such, the population in Canada is beginning to decline. They're looking as international students very much contributing and driving forward the economic well-being of Canada. So many of the academic programs, whether you choose to study at Carleton or Guelph or possibly another Canadian university, there's a real focus on, yes, the quality of the teaching, but also the focus on employment. So ensuring that during your time studying in Canada, that you have opportunities to be out working in companies, delivering live projects, gaining experience, which will all help you if your goal is to stay back for post-study work opportunities, or whether you go on to work for a global blue chip company, having that live experience on top of your quality education as well. They're really flexible and portable degrees. And I think one of the great things about studying in Canada, especially at undergraduate level, is the opportunity to combine your majors and also your minors as well. So for example, you could be at Carleton studying engineering, but you might be building in international business or possibly economics as your minor. Degrees will be generally 4-year degree programs, depending on the type of program you're studying. And as Yomi mentioned, masters will range between 1 and 3 years. The key thing for you guys, though, when you're thinking about Canada is to think about the timelines. It's quite different to choosing other countries to study in, such as Australia or the UK. You need to give yourself time in Canada. One, to get the offer letter from your university you choose to study at, but more importantly, and this is where Matthew will go on to talk more about this, is the study permit side of things, which in West Africa, and obviously the pandemic has slowed things down over the past 18 months or so. Applying for your study permit can take anything between kind of 12 and 16 weeks. So you need to allow yourself plenty time. For those of you who are still interested in this September, it's almost becoming too late. Certainly, most postgraduate programs are closed. There are still opportunities at undergraduate, both at Carleton and also at Guelph. But if you are in the position now where you have your senior high school grades, or you have your predicted grades, you have your finance in place, I would strongly encourage you to work with Team UKEAS across Nigeria to get that application in. There may still be opportunities to get your study permit through in time, but it is quite tight to the wire, and it may be the case that you might need to look at a January, February intake if you don't have your grades or your financial package in place at the moment. We've spoken about employability. Studying in Canada will give you that cutting edge exposure to leading blue chip companies that will not only combine your academic degree, but give you that working experience that global employers are absolutely looking for. So in Canada, when you apply to most Canadian universities, a large number of them have very strong scholarship packages behind them. Most of them are not separate scholarship applications. So if you apply to Guelph and if you apply to Carleton, we will look at your academic grades. If you have strong grades, then we will look in your letter of offer to offer you an initial entrance-based scholarship. And actually, if you keep up your academic performance in year 2, year 3, and year 4, there will be further scholarships issued to you as you progress through your university. Generally affordable, plenty part-time work for international students, the opportunity on your study permit to do that part-time work. And actually, compared with universities in the UK, where I'm located, you'll find that there's actually a large number of part-time jobs available across campus, working in the various shops, restaurants, and sporting clubs and societies that dominate campus life at Canadian universities. I just want to touch a little bit on the current COVID situation. I'm sure Matthew will talk a little bit more about the kind of borders and what's happening at the moment, but Canada is open for international students. So if you do have an offer to study at a COVID secure institution, which most of the public universities in Canada now are, then you do have the opportunity of studying on campus for this September. My clients, Guelph and Carleton, are absolutely committed, as long as all the public health information is pointing in the right direction, that the majority of the academic teaching on campus from this September will be in person. So there are quarantine procedures in place. The universities have worked very closely with the state government to ensure that they're meeting the highest possible standards as well. So let me introduce my two universities to you. First off, the University of Guelph. Quick geography lesson. Located in the state of Ontario, very close to the likes of Toronto, an hour from Toronto Pearson Airport, close by to Waterloo, Hamilton, London, and also Ridgetown as well. Guelph's an ideal location, especially for an undergraduate student or parents who are looking for a nice quiet city, a fantastic campus experience, great sporting facilities. And it's a university that is renowned across Canada and also globally for the work that it does in food technology, veterinary medicine, agricultural science, and also the likes of ecology as well. That said, it still covers major subjects such as business and engineering. So population of about 133,000, rated as one of the 10 best places to live in Canada. It's one of Canada's smart cities. And as you can see from the image on the screen here, it's a city that's surrounded, as many Canadian cities are, by fantastic parkland and lakes and mountains on the doorstep. Very much a city of music. Major jazz festivals and other alternative music festivals regularly hosted in Guelph and across the city. When I visit the campus and meet with my colleagues in the international office, this is the main street you can see on the screen here in Guelph, 10 to 15 minutes on a bus from downtown Guelph out to the self-contained campus. So, over 86 majors across 12 degree programmes at the University of Guelph, and that covers everything from applied science right through until veterinary medicine, but also including key subject areas that our students across West Africa are really looking to and aspiring to study in Canada. And that includes the likes of computing, engineering, architecture, and obviously covering the key areas in science as well. Yomi was mentioning earlier on the kind of close links to industry, and that's true of both Guelph and also Carleton. And there's a snapshot of some of the leading blue chip companies that the University of Guelph works with. So many international brands there, the likes of the Royal Bank of Canada, Starbucks, Marriott, Microsoft, to name but a few. Now, as a student studying undergraduate level, you could be doing a co-op work placement, anything between 4, 8, and 12 months. And you can actually be earning anything from 475 to 1,000 Canadian dollars in there then as well. And those programs at Co-op are available across 47 different majors. Types of entrance requirements at Guelph, we're looking at the WIAC curriculum. Absolutely aware that the exams have been delayed this year. And you may not be taking your exams until September with results in October, November. We're happy to look at predicted grades as we did last year, or it may be the case that you're studying IB or GCE and Cambridge A-levels. But generally at Guelph, we're looking for a minimum of B3 across your WIAC on predicted grades of 6 subjects, and one of those must include your English as well. Obviously, scratch card confirmation to confirm your WIAC results. No additional English language, either at Guelph or Carleton, so we don't require you to go on to do IELTS or TOEFL or Pearson's or any of the other international English language qualifications. A quick bit on financing. Fees at Guelph, it obviously depends on the programme you're studying, but anything between 26,000 and 36,000 Canadian dollars. Some excellent entrance scholarships of between 5,500 and 8,500 Canadian dollars. And there's renewable scholarships of up to 4,000 Canadian dollars as well. Let's jump city. Let's move to the capital city, Ottawa, where Carleton University is located. Again, like Guelph, according to the Maclean's rankings, one of the top comprehensive universities in Canada, and both of them, Guelph and Carleton, in the top 5 across Canada. Travelling out to Ottawa, very simple from Nigeria. You either jump on the BA flight in Lagos or in Abuja, straight into London, and then you can fly into Montreal, into Ottawa, into Toronto, and transfer up to Ottawa. I quite often fly into Montreal, spend the night in Montreal, and then get the train down from Montreal to Ottawa, which is a fantastic train journey, where you really get to see the Canadian landscape, which is, in the summer, is just a fantastic sight. Real broad array of subjects available at Carleton, everything from engineering and design to arts and commerce. Again, we've got the paid internships. It's a G8 capital city, and actually a really strong international population at Carleton. Over 4,500 international students, making up about 15% of the student population at Carleton. We've been working closely with Yomi, with Martins, and the rest of the fantastic team at UKEAS in Nigeria. They've done some excellent work for Carleton, and there's a strong alumni pool, a Nigerian student society at the university. So you're not going to be the only Nigerian student at Carleton, but as Yomi said at the start, you'll get to meet students from all over the world, whether that's South America, whether it's Europe, whether it's Southeast Asia, whatever. It's a fantastic cultural melting pot, a little bit like Toronto or Vancouver. Studying in the capital city, all the advantages that you would expect, I suppose a little bit like Abuja in Nigeria, where you have all the embassies and kind of leading research institutes and NGOs kind of associated with what's going on in the capital city. Chance to try things you may never have done. You've got the opportunity to try winter sports, skiing, ice skating. And for those of you who are looking to study design or architecture at Carleton, what a fantastic cityscape you've got to live, work and study in. Here's a shot of the campus. So in the foreground is Carleton's campus. All of the teaching, accommodation for first-year students, the Rydal UNESCO World Heritage Canal flowing by, all the sporting facilities, and you jump on the train to downtown Ottawa, 10 to 15 minutes. And there we go, very similar to Guelph, that amazing parkland on your doorstep that you can explore at the weekends and during your holidays as well. Carleton works really closely with major leading blue chip companies, and you can see along the bottom some international brands, IBM, for those working in the financial services, the big four, KPMG, Deloitte, and many more where you've got the chance as a student to carry out your co-op work placements. Over 22 undergraduate degree programs available at Carleton, everything from architectural studies through to social work, renowned for one of the oldest schools of journalism in Canada, and strong in the likes of economics. And as a capital city, as an international city, as a G8 city, obviously specialising in the likes of global and international studies, but strong in industrial design and music, media production, kind of key specialisms on offer at Carleton as well. Fee structure at Carleton in Canadian dollars, depending on the programme you're doing, anything between 28,000 and 39,000 Canadian dollars, or if you prefer it in US, 20 to 29,000. And as Matthew will say, what you will need to show is the ability to fund your first year of studies, living expenses, but also having a plan in place in terms of how you're going to fund years 2, year 3, and year 4 if you're looking at undergraduate study. Canada, Carleton, and Guelph and many other Canadian universities offer fantastic scholarship opportunities. We're looking for the brightest, we're looking for the best, and if you're a strong Nigerian student, when you make your application, you will be rewarded for that. Because based on your academic grades and your letter of offer to the university, and of course UKEAS will fully be able to assist you with that application process, we will automatically award you a scholarship where we can. And in 2019, over 24 million Canadian dollars were offered in scholarships at Carleton. And let me show you a breakdown of that. So you could be awarded anything between 1,000 and 4,000 Canadian dollars for your undergraduate study as an entrance scholarship. As long as you keep up that academic performance, that'll be multiplied across your 4 years of study. So you could be gaining anything between 4,000 and 16,000 Canadian dollars as an entrance and a continuing scholarship. So I am going to finish there. I am going to have to drop off the call in a moment. So I'm more than happy to hand back to Team UKEAS and take any questions you might have before I finish today.
Okay, thank you so much to Stuart for that presentation. A lot of information in a short time. Thank you so very much. We also have Matthew McDonald, who is on the call right now. He is a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and he's on the call right now. So, but before we get to Matthew, just give me a second. Let's see the questions. Okay. There are a lot of questions about schools and scholarships and all that, which I think, Stuart, you've covered. And
Okay.
seeing as you're going to drop off the call very quickly, I think what I would do is, would you mind sharing your details in the chat box, Stuart?
Absolutely,
So that,
absolutely.
Yeah, so that any student can reach out to you directly. And then because the next presentation is by Matthew, who would start now, and he would have to finish that up and then take questions because he too has to drop off very soon for another engagement. All right. Matthew is a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, like I said, and he normally charges for his services, but he is doing this for us very generously. free of charge. But anyone that wants to contact him after the event can do so, and charges may apply. But I will be dropping his contact details in the chat box for you, so that if you want to contact Matthew after the event, you can do so. Hi, Matthew. Very nice to have you on the
Hi.
call.
Thanks for having me today.
You're welcome.
Greetings, everyone. I'll
Good
just share my screen here.
Yes, please. Please, while Matthew is sharing his screen, to all our guests, kindly turn off your cameras, all right, please, so that we can focus on the event. Thank you very much. Matthew, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. As explained, I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and what that means is a special designation that Canada has created, because under Canadian law, in order to give immigration advice for a fee, one must be a lawyer, paralegal, or regulated Canadian immigration consultant. It's fine to give immigration advice for free under Canadian law, but if you charge for it, then you must have a license. So I have one of the three possible licenses. I do this work in large part because I used to work as an international student advisor, directly helping international students with immigration questions at a college in Toronto. I currently work at the University of Toronto in a different job, but I have maintained my license, and so I do immigration work on evenings and weekends while I work in a university environment during the day. I can confirm a lot of what has been said today. I have experience at, I think, 5 different universities or colleges in Canada, and all of them were great institutions. I spent 2 wonderful years in Ottawa doing my studies. I've studied in Quebec, Manitoba as well, and I'm actually currently greeting you from Vancouver today. So I've had a lot of exposure across the country. But the focus of my session today is immigration questions, not which school. I'm here to help you get the Canadian study permit after you already have your letter of acceptance, after you have maybe a scholarship. So I'm the next step in the process of coming to Canada. And unfortunately, for today's presentation, it's not all great news because getting a Canadian study permit is not as easy as it should be. And so the main message I want to say is that it's something that you should take a lot of time and care with. And that's why I came today to give you some high level of advice. You don't need to hire someone to apply for a study permit. That's certainly not the message I want to give today. Many people apply for successfully on their own, but many people do benefit from getting professional guidance. So I'm going to offer you some of that professional guidance for free today. First of all, one question I want to address is timing. It really would be hard to get a study permit by September right now. It's I'm not saying impossible, but likely challenging. Canada's immigration ministry, called IRCC, in case I accidentally say that without explaining what it is, but Canadian Immigration has promised to get a decision on study permit applications by August 6th for anyone who applied before May 15th. Obviously, it's past May 15th right now, so no one here would benefit from that. But it's still possible that one could get a study permit by September, but not likely. If you are doing a program that starts in October or November, I think that's possible. And certainly if you're looking to start a program in January, I think that's definitely likely that you could get a decision on your application. So that's the first common question that I was prepared for. And then the next question is really about what's important to think about in preparing the study permit application. What's going to make it more likely to be approved rather than refused? So first of all, in order to apply for a study permit, you do need to get accepted to a program. So as I said, that's step 1, figure out the right program, the right college, or university, or other educational institution that meets your goals. And that's going to be different for everyone. If you are 18 and looking, or 19 and looking to go to university for the first time, then your decisions are going to be different from someone who's maybe 30 years old and looking at a postgraduate program. So there's a lot of different factors, but when you make your decision, don't make a quick decision about the school. Make a decision that makes sense for you as part of your plan, because with the study permit application, the Canadian visa officers are also going to be trying to see if your study plan makes sense. And the reason they do that is that most of the study permit application is about the visa officer trying to figure out if you genuinely are wanting to study. And I know it's so obvious for you if you genuinely want to study, but when you don't actually speak to anyone, you just submit an application of documents, you need to make it clear that you truly do want to study a specific program and why it makes sense for you and how it fits into your life goals, really. So you need to write a study plan or a letter of explanation to include in your application, explaining why you want to do this program, why it makes sense based on your age or your academic background, your career goals, or maybe your employment history. If you're a bit older and you've been working for a while, why do you want to go back to school? What do you want to do with this extra education in Canada? And the visa officer is especially looking for what you're going to do with this program of study in Nigeria when you return home. Now, we've heard today about how there's great pathways. Actually, it's a strange tension because Canada really wants international students to stay in the country. International students are actually viewed as the ideal immigrant to Canada in many ways, and Canada needs immigrants. Canada is looking for 401,000 new permanent residents this year, because we're a country that, in order to grow, we need immigrants to help our population maintain itself and increase. So we're looking for 401,000 new immigrants in Canada, and there's a strong understanding that international students who have come through the local education system, have made great networks and friends, and then get work experience here. Really, it makes sense to stay. But when you apply for a study permit, the visa officer is also trying to figure out if it doesn't work out for you to become a permanent resident, if you maybe don't get the job you're looking for, will you go back to Nigeria? And so they're looking at, does it make sense for what you're studying? How would you use that in Nigeria as well? So that needs to be part of your study permit application. And they're also trying to look for things like connections to home in your study permit application to see, again, if things don't work out in Canada, are you going to go back to home, or are you just going to kind of try to find another way to stay? The main concerns of the Canadian government is that people will come and work without legal authorization, or that they will, really that's, I would say, the main thing, and that they stay in the country without having any status. That's what they're really trying to avoid. So that's why in your study permit application, you need to emphasize things like having family in Nigeria, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, grandparents, any family. There would be a reason that you would, of course, not want to overstay in Canada, because that would mean not seeing your loved ones again. Other ties to home that you can show in your study permit include property. Obviously, many young people do not have property, so don't worry if you don't have property, but if you have it, that's a great addition. Similarly, someone maybe who's a bit older, looking at doing a postgraduate certificate or a master's degree, you could possibly talk to your employer and they may be willing to hire you back, maybe even give you a promotion after you have this additional international education. And that's not required for the study permit application, but that's the type of thing that can help strengthen study permit application and make it more likely that you will be approved. Finally, another great thing to add to your application, if you have it, is international travel history. Of course, not everyone has the opportunity to travel internationally, and so don't feel that you can't get a study permit if you've never been able to travel internationally. I know I certainly never had the chance to travel internationally before I finished my university studies. But if you have traveled internationally, that shows that you are a person who has gone to another country, followed the immigration rules, and returned home. And so that suggests that you would do the same thing, that if you've gone to other countries and followed the immigration rules, then you'll probably be someone who goes to Canada and follows the immigration rules. And Canada is a country that really likes rule followers, especially in terms of immigration. And so a lot of the study permit application is trying to figure out if you're someone who's going to follow the rules, basically. So then, otherwise, the financial ability, that you have enough money for tuition and living expenses is also a crucial part of the study permit application. If the visa officer is uncertain about your ability to pay for your studies, then they certainly won't approve your study permit. Because ultimately they're worried about you overstaying in Canada or pretending to go to school so that you can actually just make an asylum claim or like for refugee status. That's really what the other concern is. And ultimately, that is part of why the refusal rate is higher for Nigeria in particular. You may have heard from some of your peers that it can be hard to get a Canadian study permit, especially for Nigerians, and unfortunately that is true. Canada publishes its study permit approval rates, and they go generally between like 20% and 80% in each country. And there's a lot of factors involved, but one unfortunate thing that is really has nothing to do with you when you apply is that Nigerians are one of the in terms of asylum seekers in Canada, the Nigerians are the nationality who have the highest rate of refugee claims, and so because of that, Canada is very cautious about other types of immigration applications because they want to make sure that your genuine purpose is to study, that you're not using the study permit as a means of making an asylum claim. So that's part of the reason that the refusal rate is higher in Nigeria. It's just a higher level of suspicion. And I'm
Hi, Matthew. Can you hear us?
Okay, I think maybe his internet went off or something. Maybe we just hold on for
Yes.
him. We'll try to reconnect. If you're hearing me, can you put off your videos, please? Thank you.
So to all our guests, please hold on just a few more minutes while Matthew tries to rejoin.
I could still see someone's video still turned on. If the person is
Mr.
not
Kingsley,
the person
Mr. Kingsley, Mr. Kingsley, please turn off your video, please. Thank you very much. Okay, so while we wait for Matthew, I think we can take some questions from the chat box and begin to answer them, Mr. Yomi, especially those questions targeted at studying in Canada, while we wait for Matthew to join us. And then hopefully he'll be able to reconnect. Is that okay by you, Mr. Yomi?
Oh yes, please. Let's go ahead.
Yes, okay. Okay, so just give me a few minutes. Let me get to the top of the chat and then we'll pick out those questions. All right, to all the guests who have noted in the chat box that they couldn't hear anything, please log out and try logging back in. I think that should resolve the issue. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is a bit of a visa question, but I think Mr. Yomi, you might be able to say one or two things about this. So a student wants to find out if it will be possible for her to move with her family as dependents if given admission to study in Canada.
Oh yes, it is possible, but it depends on the course you are going for. For instance, if you're going for a postgraduate course and you have a family, yes, it's definitely once you're able to show the financial coverage for your family that okay, I have this social amount of budget, I'm able to pay my fees, pay my own living expenses, and pay for the living expenses of XYZ family member in Canada. Yes, it's possible basically. But then another thing that might be a challenge is that for somebody who who probably does not have ties, remember all the things that Matthew was talking about, because this will not be considered in isolation. It will be considered with other factors. That do you have ties? Do you have family history? Have you traveled wide before? Will it be a big deal for this person traveling with family? For instance, if you holiday to the UK regularly with your family and you're now going for studies in Canada with your family, that won't be a big deal. But if you never traveled outside Nigeria before and all of a sudden you got an offer from Canada and you don't want to live with your whole family, I don't think they will issue the visa. So those are the kind of scenarios that will play out here before they issue the visa.
Okay. That's really interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
And yes. So for our guest, this for the visa application, cases are considered in connection with your other immigration history, just like Matthew was talking about before he got off. So please, if you're making that application, it's important for it to make sense. Okay, like Mr. Yomi said, you cannot have never traveled out with your family and then decide you want to go with all the members of your family at once to Canada to study. That would be suspicious. Okay, so please, and of course, you can always discuss that with a UKEAS counselor when you're making your application, and our counselors will be able to help to give you proper guidance on that. I think this one should have been handled by Stuart. This student wants to know the possibility of doing another degree in Canada, if how possible it will be to be granted a study visa.
Okay.
Would you?
All right.
Yeah.
I think I can speak to that. Basically, I've had the privilege of seeing sample personal statements that are being written to the embassy. And believe me, the truth about it is that people don't take personal statements very serious in Nigeria and Ghana, and that's why they get refused. Personal statements are things that you have to write as if you are writing a project when you're applying to Canada. It has to make sense. It's not just something that you write a few words, like 200 words. I want to study. I want to go down, and that's all. You have to really, really dig. Dug deep and tell them compelling reasons why you want to go study and how this ties in with your career. It's not something that it's something that you have to sit down, think before you write. Basically, I think Matthew's back on now. So
Yes. Hi, Matthew. Sorry, we lost you for a few minutes there.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't even know at what point I dropped off.
Okay, I think you were talking about why visa rates from African countries get more visa refusals. I think that was where you got stuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I will go back a few slides. I guess I just
Yes.
talked to myself for a few minutes.
So sorry
this is the
about
slide
that.
No problem. Okay. So had I finished up this question, or should I restart this question about why the refusal rate is higher?
Yeah, I think it would be best to restart, because we've had some questions about visa refusals already. Yeah.
Sure. So, and for the main reason why it is harder for Nigerian student applicants to get a study permit is actually because Nigeria is also the country with the highest number of asylum seekers to Canada. So, because Nigeria is the #1 country of people trying to become or seeking refugee status in Canada, that means the visa officers are really suspicious of all types of immigration applications. So Nigerian applicants have to work really hard to show that their genuine purpose is to study. And that's unfortunate for you because you can't control that when you're applying for a study permit. But it's the context of the situation in which you're applying. And so that's why it's immensely important to make sure that you have a very good study plan that you've communicated. You need to really show why it makes sense for you, what your career goals are, why it makes sense if you work in Canada, and also why it would make sense, how you could use this education back in Nigeria. And then the other part of the refusal rate is challenges with verifying financial documents. Especially financial documents. So to address this, fortunately, Canada's Immigration Department has introduced a pilot program for Nigeria is a special program to help verify financial documents. You actually just submit a normal study permit application, and then they will invite you to take part in it. And so if they do invite you, I certainly strongly encourage you to take advantage of it, because that means you have a much higher chance of getting your study permit approved. So the next question I had to cover is, are relatives allowed to sponsor my studies? And the answer to that is a resounding yes. There is absolutely no expectation that you have to self-fund your studies. Especially, if I think myself as a 20-year-old, there's no way I had the money to study internationally. If I were to do that, I would have had to rely on others. And most people do require some support from their families to study. I think the challenge, again, and going back to the reasons for refusal, is perhaps the family networks in Nigeria that may support your studies. So you really need, I think the visa officer thinks, like, if it's your mother or father, then they think that's very obvious why they would support you. When it starts to be an aunt or uncle or cousin, you need to show that it's a really strong relationship, and that the support is genuine. The visa officers, again, are worried that family members will show their money and say that they'll support you, but then they really don't intend to. So that's why it's crucial that the family member genuinely wants to pay for your studies. There's multiple ways you can actually document your funds. I've shown some here just as examples, because every individual situation is different, and it's different in every country. And so that's what Canada's Immigration Department understands. So they allow for multiple types of ways to show your funds. Let me go to the next slide. Okay. One other common question is about age limit. And I can answer, again, simply no. There's absolutely no age limit for study permits. However, I will at the same time acknowledge that it is more challenging for older applicants to get approved for a study permit. And the reason for that is that when you're 18 or 19, the study plan doesn't have to be as strong, because often you're still exploring what you want to do with your career. You're exploring what you want to do with your education. And that's different for a 32-year-old who's already studied an undergraduate degree and worked for a few years. So if you're 32 and you're returning to school, you need to have a really good study plan in your application to explain why you want to make this additional investment, why you want to step away from the workforce, and how you want to use this in your career. Is it to change direction in your career? Is it to level up in your career? So it's just that it's extra work for older applicants to explain why they want to study. Because there is definitely a bias in favor of younger applicants, because there's an idea that it's more normal for young people to study, but it's certainly possible for older students to get a study permit as well. For example, I work at the University of Toronto right now in the business school. So we have Nigerian students in their 30s who study with us. So it's certainly possible. I personally have helped a 55-year-old who's not from Nigeria, from another country, but a 55-year-old get approval for a study permit. And I was even surprised that we got that approval, but it is possible. You have to have a really good career plan and a really good explanation letter about why this education makes sense. And the older you are, the more persuasive that argument needs to be. So you need to really show how your career goal, again, fits with your academic background, your employment history, and your career goals. So the final question I prepared today is really about permanent residency. I think there was a lot of attention about this new program that made it really easy for international student graduates to become permanent residents. And this is a new program, but it's certainly not a new idea, because the idea remains the same, that international students are ideal immigrants for Canada. You've spent time building a social and professional network. You've settled in. You know the way the system works. You have a support network. You have work experience. And so if you're happy to stay, Canada kind of says, well, it's great. It makes sense for you to stay. Here are some pathways. That's why the post-graduation work permit program is a pillar of Canada's international student program, where you can gain up to 3 years of work experience in Canada. And once you have 1 year of skilled work experience, it actually becomes much simpler for you to become a permanent resident if you choose. So it's not guaranteed, but it's much simpler once you have a year of skilled work experience. That pathway is quite clear, and I expect it to remain for years and years and years. But this special program made it even easier, because of the pandemic. Last year, in 2020, Canada did not meet its immigration goal. It only brought in about half of the permanent residents it wanted to. And that's a problem for our country because our population does not grow on its own. We're not having enough children. So we need immigrants for Canada's population to keep growing. So our target this year is 401,000 new permanent residents. And so it's hard when the borders are basically closed to bring in new immigrants. So the idea is look inside Canada, there's all these temporary residents, people like international students and graduates, and try to convert them to permanent residents. So this program was created to allow 40,000 international student graduates who had a job, any job, apply for permanent residence. It's a very popular program, and it filled up within 25 hours. So we might see additional space made available in this program, but ultimately, I would not expect this program to be something that any of you can take advantage if you're in Nigeria now. This is a special pandemic-related program, but I do expect all of the conventional pathways to remain the same. All the normal pathways to permanent residency will continue for years to come. That is fully my expectation, and the expectations of other professionals I work with. So there, I've covered those questions again. I see I've not dropped off this time, which is great. And if there are any questions that have come in, I can take those through the moderator right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you so much for that presentation. We do have some questions in the chat box. I will pick up questions that you've not previously answered, and we'll see how far we can go before you have to meet your other appointment. So we have a question from a student who has started studies online due to the pandemic, but has not gotten a study permit yet. And then by July, she says she will be rounding up her graduate diploma in graduate studies. Is it she has reapplied for the study permit and was denied? Do you think she should go ahead and do that again? Does she have any hope of doing that again, since her program will be rounding up by July, so in a couple of months?
So I would say there's actually a lot of factors in making that decision, and I don't think I can give advice without knowing a lot more of the details. So I think that's one where I would say you should either you can connect with me for a consultation afterwards, or work with your school as well if they have any immigration support, because there's a lot of unknowns there for me to answer generally.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to be dropping Matthew's contact details in the chat box. So please, if you need guidance, you can reach out to him. But like I said, charges may apply, okay, because he's a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. So please bear that in mind when reaching out to him. All right? It's very important.
And so yeah, my email address is right there, and yeah, if you can put it in the chat, that's helpful. And I will just quickly review my fees for everyone, so there's no surprises. No need to write me to ask my costs. And I recognize that my services are costly because I really do this on evenings and weekends. Many will be providing immigration advice for free, but just it's because of the time involved, these are the prices I have set. For a 1-hour consultation over video like this, really over study permits, permanent residence, work permits of any kind, my fee is 100 Canadian dollars. And for anyone who's already been accepted to an institution, if you would like me to prepare your study permit application for you, my fee is 1,000 Canadian dollars. And again, those are, if you are interested in working with me, you can reach me at info@mmimmigrationservices.com.
All right. Thank you very much. I hope that was clear for our guests. Okay. All right. Someone's asking. Oh, we've covered this question in the presentation. Your proof of funds should be 4 months. Yes, I believe I'm correct, Matthew. 4 months, right?
Yes, minimum of 4 months. There are specific visa office instructions, for each country. And so for Nigeria, I think they may ask for 6 months, but it may. I would have to double check that. There's visa office instructions. I can check that now as well, but the standard is 4 months.
Okay, thank you. someone wants to find out if it's mandatory to apply for the visa with a police character certificate. Could you shed more light on that, please?
Absolutely. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll show you where I get this information.
Okay.
It's not mysterious. So there's I'm going on the Government of Canada website, and there are so we look up Nigeria, and there are instructions. And so some countries need a police certificate, some do not. So I'm looking at the visa office instructions for Nigeria, and the checklist says you must submit passport photos, letter of acceptance, academic documents, proof of funds. No, it does not appear as though a police certificate is mandatory for Nigeria.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, sorry, it is. No, I take that back. I just found it. Yes, an original police clearance certificate obtained from CID headquarters is necessary for the applicant and any family members over 18.
Okay. Okay. So there you have it. So if it's one of the documents you need to put together, okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Matthew. A guest wants to know, in terms of sponsorship, a church has been sponsoring his or her education for the past 5 years and also wants to sponsor his or her study in Canada. Okay, what documents would he or she need to back this up? Is it possible? Because I know you talked about, family members being able to sponsor students and all that, but what about religious organizations, sponsorship from, say, workplace and all that? Is that also?
Yep. Yeah, employer sponsorship I've seen before. I haven't seen religious organization sponsorship, but I don't see why it wouldn't be possible, especially if there's already a history that you can show of sponsoring the studies within Nigeria. So I would recommend a letter of explanation from the sponsor, affirming their support and especially explaining previous support to explain why this relationship of support will continue, and then along with the financial documents from the sponsor.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So if someone is asking if he can sponsor himself, especially if he has a working experience of over 2 years, I don't know. I don't think it's possible to make that kind of money in 2 years. So you should have other sponsorship from family members or something like that. Am I right, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, unless you have unless you have a really amazing job, and it's certainly okay to have sponsorship from family members, but it's also completely fine if you can self-fund. If you have the financial ability to pay for yourself, you do not require a sponsor.
Okay.
And you would use your own financial documents. But yeah, it's not many people are able to do that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Another student wants to find out, being refused a Canadian visitor's visa in the past, does it affect a study permit application?
It could, but it's not necessarily that. It doesn't mean it's impossible to get a study permit. The previous refusal has to be addressed, but that was a different time. You were planning to go to Canada for a different reason, and now you're explaining that now you want to come to Canada to study. So it's certainly possible to get a study permit even after a refusal. Also, it's possible if you've been refused for a visa for another country that you could still get one from Canada.
Okay, okay. Just as a side note to that, what problems have you seen students have that it's almost irreversible for them to get a student permit?
The biggest crime in Canadian immigration is misrepresentation. So if you have been caught lying or submitting fraudulent documents in the past, that will basically make it impossible for you to get a study permit.
Okay, okay. I think that's a big one. All right, so
yeah,
please.
Absolutely. So never try to lie or fake anything, because you can permanently damage your opportunities.
Okay, Okay, thank you very much for that. I think it's very important for our guests to know that even when you're making that application to Canada, if you are asked, have you been refused visas before in the past to different, it's better not to lie. Just, state it up straight up. And then it's always important to meet with a regulated Canadian consultant like Matthew here before your application. It's better. He said it's pricey, but I feel it's better to pay up upfront and rather than making that application, submitting and putting all that funds and effort in and then still do not get your visa. So better to pay up upfront and then get professional advice than for you to try and do it on your own, get refused, because that could also affect subsequent visa applications and all that. All right, so it's very, very important. All right, let's see, what other question haven't we talked on? I'm skipping a lot of questions because it's been covered in the presentation. Yes, so to our guest, if I do not ask your question, that means it's been covered in the presentation. And after the event, you can always reach out to UKEAS and our counselors will be more than happy to help you with the questions, okay? All right, let me just skip over these ones. Yes, okay. Just give me a few minutes. Okay, for the student who is asking if UKEAS do support PhD applications or applicants, yes, we do. Okay, so just to bear that in mind. So John is asking about the part about parents and uncle sponsoring you. I think Matthew had explained that in the presentation, so we will not take that again so that we can just ask other questions that hasn't been covered. Okay. Okay, yes, this question is important. Visa application for masters versus a college. So we do understand that in the Canadian education system, colleges are quite different from universities and all that. So how does the visa success rate, okay, for someone who just wants to do maybe a diploma course and all that, what's the success rate regarding that? Does the person has to apply for a full master's or even a diploma would be able to get you a visa?
So the data is probably available if I looked it up, but I can't tell you right now if there's a difference between in success rate between college and university applications. But what I do see more often, reasons for refusal, if especially older applicants apply for a diploma rather than a postgraduate certificate, is often that the visa officers are suspicious of the study plan, that they often aren't convinced that the program choice makes sense, for the applicant. And so if you choose maybe a lower level program than what you've already had, so a diploma is lower than a bachelor's degree. So if you already have a bachelor's degree and you're applying for a diploma, that will raise a red flag to the visa officer. So you need to have a really good explanation about why you want to do the diploma, why it makes sense for you and your career goals and your educational goals. So it's not impossible, but you need to be able to explain really well the logic behind why you want to do. It might be obvious to you, but you need to make your thinking and your goals clear to the immigration officer who's going to review your application. So that's why I think sometimes there are I think the admissions processes to get into colleges are generally simpler than they are for universities. And so I think sometimes people then don't put as much work into a study permit application if they haven't put in a lot of work into their college application. Whereas the university applications can be more difficult, but they also reinforce the idea that the study permit application needs a lot of care as well. So I think I know that's kind of a weird way of answering the question, but it's not an easy answer. It's more about each individual application, and you can get a diploma as long as if are a lower level credential, as long as you can show why it makes sense to you.
Okay, okay. So the most important thing is that it makes sense.
Yeah.
Whatever level you're applying for, whatever course you're applying for, it has to make logical sense to the visa officer.
Yeah, and especially how you need to be able to explain how this program of study can help you if you return to Nigeria. That's, I think, often what is missing from study permit applications is how will this program of study help me if I return home.
Okay, okay. Thank you. So this student wants to find out if a dependent of a postgraduate, a student who is coming to study at postgraduate level or above, if his or her dependent can work while he studies.
So if the dependent is a spouse or common law partner, then yes, the spouse or common law partner can get an open work permit. If they are children, then they cannot, but they can attend public school for free.
Okay, okay. I guess that answers that question. All right, for the student who wants to know about the documents required, Matthew showed us the link on how to get those. So please just reach out to the UKEAS office closest to you. We've dropped our office's email addresses in the chat box, so you can reach out to us. We would get that information to you. Okay. Let's see which. Okay. Someone is asking if a family member can go with an undergraduate student, say a student who is 17, 18, going for an undergraduate course, if a family member can get something like a visit visa to, come over, see him, just make sure he or she is doing well. I know that's not study visa, related,
a
but
visitor visa. It's
yeah.
certainly possible for the family member to get the visa to help, especially a young person settle into a new country. I see why you would want that family support, and it is possible. But it's more challenging to get than the study permit, and because the more family members start coming to Canada, the more the visa officers will wonder if the genuine intention is study. But it is certainly possible, and I would encourage you to apply, your family member to apply for that visa if that's important to you. The only thing I would add is this year is not the year that's likely to happen. That would be more of in normal times. Right now, with the travel restrictions, it would be very hard for the family member to come to Canada with them.
Okay. Okay. Well, while we're on the topic of study restrictions and all that, what are the current restrictions in place when it comes to people coming in for studies? Yes. Do they need to self-isolate for how many days? Is it the mandatory hotel, like I know the UK has that, you'd have to mandatory isolate in a hotel or something for 10 days or something like that. Does that apply to Canada as well?
Yeah, so currently Canada allows international students to come to Canada, but they have to quarantine for 14 days, and the first 3 have to be done in a hotel. This may change in the coming months. I do expect it will change in the coming months, but especially for there's talk of making it easier for people who have the opportunity to be vaccinated before coming, and if not, then I would expect the 14-day quarantine to remain in place for quite some time. But my other expectation is that if anyone has not had the opportunity to be vaccinated before coming, that I do expect that they would have the opportunity to get vaccinated in Canada upon arrival. Because Canada expects that everyone over the age of 12 should have the opportunity to be fully vaccinated by the end of September.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Then talking about visa success rate, someone wants to know if having a sibling who has studied in Canada before, can it also improve their chances of getting their visa, their student permit? Yeah.
Yes, it certainly can. If, as I said, Canada is a country that likes rule followers. So if you can show that your sibling has followed the rules, it suggests that you're probably going to do the same thing. At the same time, having a family member in Canada does decrease your ties to Nigeria, but it certainly doesn't mean you can't get a study permit. It can definitely be helpful.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. I think that's most of the questions we have today. The rest of the questions are school related. Someone is asking about why people within the age of 40 and above are mostly denied a study visa. I think Matthew, you've covered that. Is because
Yeah.
the chances are you cannot prove sufficiently that you're just going to study and return back to the country. If you're already at the age of 40 and um, you already have strong work history in Nigeria, it's going to be a bit challenging to explain why you want to leave that and then come over to study. But it's not impossible.
No, it's
Okay.
not
Yes.
impossible, but it's also, I think, harder if you're in your 40s to explain why it's a good financial investment because you don't have as many working years in your life to pay off
Left.
the
Yes.
education.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So right now I've dropped Matthew's email address again in the chat box. So please, I would like all our students to please, if you want to contact Matthew, you can take up his email address in the chat box. Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Matthew.
you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. I know you're rushing off to another engagement. So thank you so much for taking out the time to, run through this with us. And I'm sure some students would get in touch with you in the coming days.
My pleasure. Have a great
All right.
weekend.
And you too. Thank you. Cheers. All right. So to all our guests, we're going to be taking further questions for Mr. Yomi. Uh, Stuart has dropped out as well, so we'll just be taking for Mr. Yomi. And we do have some of our other counselors um, who specialize in Canadian schools and visas, okay, who will be on hand to also assist um, to answer some of your questions. But if we're not able to take your question um, during this event, please feel free to reach out to any of the UKEAS offices in Nigeria. Okay, I've dropped the email addresses to all the offices in Nigeria in the chat box. So please just reach out to any of you, the offices closest to you, and we will be more than happy to help. Hi, Mr. Yomi. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay. So we just have a few more minutes to go. So let's just pick a couple of questions and answer them quickly. Um, okay. Let's see the school questions. Okay, someone is asking that he knows UKS to cater for mostly UK schools. Um, no, we don't cater to only UK schools. We do have partners in the US, in Canada, Australia, as well as New Zealand. Okay, so we're not just focused on the UK alone. All right, and the Canadian market is growing. You can see that we have an office in Canada right now, so we're hoping to grow our network in Canada. We already have a good number of schools, and then we're hoping to grow that number again, especially for postgraduate studies, because we know that a lot of our students are people who are looking to study at master's level and above. All right. Um, for the person who asked about beginning the process, for you're just a fresh graduate, yes, I would advise you begin the process immediately. I know you still have the NYSC to go, but getting in touch with UKEAS is a sure way to start the process so that by the time you are ready, you would have all the documents, everything you need to make a successful application. So I believe that the best time to start is now. All right. Thank you. Ebuka is asking if you must take the coronavirus vaccine before you would be accepted in Canada. I think Matthew already talked on that. You do not need to have taken the vaccine, although you would need to be isolated when you get to Canada. And then, of course, if you've not taken the vaccine, that opportunity will be given to you in Canada as well as a postgraduate student or as a student anyway. Obodaya is asking, does UKEAS have specific partner universities in Canada, or will the preference of candidates be considered? Mr. Yomi, do you want to take on this?
Yeah, we have quite a number of partners in Canada. We're building more partners as we speak. But but I would assume that the student is actually referring to maybe if he or she has a preference out of our portfolio, we might not be able to take that on because the main reason will be that, because we render free services anyway, but the main reason why we won't be able to take up a school that we don't represent is that, in terms of getting correspondence, in Canada here, if you are not the agency, a representation of an applicant, for you to get correspondence going on behalf of an applicant might be difficult, and that probably might even delay your application, basically. So that's one of the reasons why we would prefer to work with schools that we already, we have formal contractual agreement with. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I believe it does. Thank you very much, Mr. Yomi. So let me see. Divine is asking if your child can come along with you. Yes. So like Mr. Yomi had said previously, and then Matthew Concord, you can come along with your dependent. Okay. Let's see. So all those who are asking about coming to with their dependents, coming to with your 2 kids, 1 kid, with your husband, yes, you can. I believe we've answered that. So you can come in with your dependents. Okay. Williams is asking for someone with a HND certificate, okay, to study in Canada for masters. What would it entail? So I don't think for the HND certificate, I think you might need to make it up to a BSc or a full degree before you can be considered for masters. I believe I'm correct, Mr. Yomi, right?
Yes, you're correct.
Yes. So please, most Canadian universities will not take on a HND for a direct master's. Okay, so you'd have to make that up to a full BSc degree, and there are a lot of universities that offer top-up programs. If you cannot find that within Canada, and then I think you can find that within our other pathways on other countries as well. So you can make that up, and then if you can still go to Canada for your master's. All right. So I believe that answers that question. Okay. So what other admission opening is available for next year? I believe Mr. Yomi has answered this. We have an opening for January and then September next year. And now is the best time to start, okay, because for September 2021, it's already quite late for you to apply because, of course, like Mr. Yomi and Stuart and Mr. Matthew had talked about, getting a visa would take about 12 to 16 weeks. Did I get that correctly, Mr. Yomi?
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, so 12 to 16 weeks. So that's quite a long time, okay, to be able to apply now and get the necessary applications in place for September. All right, so it might not be possible for this September, but for schools who are offering October start and then January and September next year, yes, it's very possible to start your applications as soon as possible. Okay. How much is required to take to Canada for studies from Nigeria? I believe did Stuart cover that? I think Stuart covered that. The requirements, financial requirements you need to have when coming for a study in Canada from Nigeria. If you need more details to that, please reach out to any of the UKEAS offices closest to you, and the counselors will be able to give you details. And then, of course, it differs from school to school, okay, and from program to program. So it's not a one figure fits all. All right. So that's very important to note. Okay. So someone says it's been 10 years since they finished their undergraduate study. Can he come for his master's? Um, there's not enough information on this. You didn't mention if you've been working within the 10 years you left school. So there's a lot of holes in this question. So could you just comment if you've had work experience since graduating 10 years ago? But Mr. Yomi, do you want to add something to that?
Well, if you graduated 10 years ago, you obviously need to have been working, but if you are, or probably you own a business. Now, after 10 years of graduation, you now want to go back for your master's, which is not impossible, by the way. You need to have compelling reasons why you now want to do that. You need to write down your personal statement and say, for instance, if people come to me with that kind of scenario, the first thing I ask them is that, can you tell me the main reason why you now want to go, for maybe XYZ masters after 10 years, if it's something that fits in well, and it makes sense, just like Matthew has said, then of course I will advise you to go ahead. But if it's just that you just now decided that, oh, okay, it's been long, let me just go, I mean, it's not going to work basically. But if it's something that is compelling and maybe probably there's an opportunity that you're looking at, and then that particular program that you're going for will enable you to get that opportunity, and you can, state the reasons, I think, yes, you should go for it. But if it's just that you're just waking up and saying, oh, I think I want to go for my master's in Canada, after 10 years, I don't think
Of
it's
studying.
really, yeah.
After 10 years of doing an undergraduate
Do
program,
not
and
exactly.
especially if you've not had any major study in between, even
Exactly.
the ability to cope with the rigors, the academic rigors, yeah, it's something else that would a visa
Yeah.
officer would be worried about.
Yes, they will.
Yes. So please, it has to make sense. That's the most important thing. That's the takeaway from most of what Mr. Yomi, Mr. Stewart, and Matthew has been talking about. Whatever your visa application, it has to make sense. Okay. Not just waking up and then deciding because you have the money you want to go to Canada and do a master's. Okay. Patricia is asking, after a 1-year MBA program, how easy is it to convert to a PR? I believe Matthew covered that. I think there's a PR route now for people who studied in Canada that just begun recently, and there is hope for it to continue in the future. So yes, it is quite possible to convert to permanent residence.
Can I add to that?
Yes, yes, please.
If you have studied in Canada, once you have studied in Canada, not elsewhere, the route to PR is such that after you have studied, you need to get the postgraduate work permits, and then after the postgraduate work permit is when you are now eligible to apply for any opportunity that may lead to PR as a student. So it's you get your studentship, get your postgraduate work permits, and then apply for permanent residency opportunities. Basically, that's the way it follows. Basically, you can't from an MBA, from finishing your program, apply directly to become a PR. No, you have to have that postgraduate work permit in there before they issue the PR to you.
Okay. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you very much, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so I believe we've answered most of the questions in the chat box
Okay.
right now. Yes. So please, if you still have questions on the UKEAS services, if you still have questions on Carleton and GWEP, those universities that Stuart talked about earlier, I believe he dropped his details in the chat box, so you can always reach out to him or reach out to UKEAS, preferably, yes, and then we can help you make applications to those universities and other universities in Canada.
Ikena,
Yes, sir?
sorry to cut you. You can also drop my email address for anybody that's serious about studies. Only for studies. You can email me about studies, not for immigration purposes. But if it's about studies, you want to study in Canada and you are planning for next year or for January, I'm happy to also take that as well. All right.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for that. So I will be dropping Mr. Yomi's information in the chat box. Okay, so please, if you want to reach out to him just for studies, like he said, study purposes, not for immigration and all that, you can reach out to Mr. Yomi, and he's more than happy to help answer those questions for you. All right, so we're going to be rounding up in a few minutes. Okay, I just want to touch on the UKEAS services again. All right, so UKEAS is an international education management company, and what we do is that we offer free counseling and advisory services to students who want to. Sorry, I think I can hear myself. There's an echo in the background. Hello? Okay, I think that's been taken care of. All right, so like I said, UKEAS offers free counseling and advisory services for all those who want to study in our destination countries. Destination countries, because it's not just Canada we work with. This event is majorly for our Canada applicants, okay, but we also have some other destination countries that we work with, okay. So like I said, our services are absolutely free, and we do have our contact details in the chat box. So please feel free to reach out to each and every office that's close to you, and we'll be happy to help you. Mr. Yomi, do you have any last words you'd like to add before we round up?
Okay, I just want to say that Canada is a fantastic study destination that we would like everybody, as long as you have the genuine intention to study, to come study in Canada, and I would love to welcome you to Canada.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Yomi. Thank you so much for your time. To all our guests and to my colleagues who have been in the call, helping answer questions in the chat box, thank you so very much. So, like I said, please free to reach out to any UKES office closest to you, and we'll be happy to help. Like someone just dropped, is the application fee for Canada or is it free? Depending on the school and the course. Okay, so you'd have to reach out to UKEAS, and then of course, depending on the course you're interested in, we can make that inquiry for you and give you that information. All right, so thank you everyone. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope to hear from you and hope to see you all in Canada in the nearest future. Thank you, Mr. Yomi. Thank you, Mr. Martins, and to all my colleagues. Thank you for helping answer those questions in the chat box.
Thank you, Ikena.
Thank you so much, Ikena. Very much. Yeah.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
everyone. To our participants, thank you so much for participating, and I hope you gain some insights. And I wish you all the best in your study applications.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Bye-bye.